Building software today is vastly different from a few years ago. As a non-technical founder, you probably wonder about costs, time, the type of team that you need to get something built, and even whether you actually need to learn some technical jargon, learn some aspects of code, hire a CTO, or actually have an in-house tech team. So this video is a guide that will help you navigate the app building process by focusing on what truly matters, common pitfalls to avoid, and basically how to set realistic expectations for your project. Let's dive in. So there are a few essential technical concepts that you kind of need to know to be able to start or lead any kind of product project. So I'm going to basically mention a few of this. And again, you don't really need to deeply understand the technical jargon behind it, but you're going to listen to these words and these concepts constantly when you start building a software-based product with a team. So you better know a little bit about what it means. So the first thing you will listen to a lot is front end and back end. Like, what's the front end? What's the back end? And you will probably collaborate with either full stack developers, so developers working on both sides of the aspects. So basically developers working on both things. And you will also maybe collaborate with teams that actually have a front-end developer and a back-end developer. So what are each of this? Think of the front end as when you go to a restaurant, everything you see. So you see the dining space, you see the table, you see all the restaurant staff walking around, getting orders and taking dishes and plates to the tables. You see the front door of the place when you walk in, and everything that's visually available to you during the experience of having dinner at a restaurant. That's the front end. The back end is the kitchen. You're not seeing anything that's going on right now in the kitchen, but there's a team working really hard to get a dish of great food to your table as fast as possible and with the best temperatures possible. That's basically the backend. Both processes, both aspects of the app are in ongoing communication and collaboration, basically from a technical standpoint. But from your perspective as a customer, all you see is basically the front end. A second thing you'll hear a lot is APIs. So basically APIs are what enable different software systems to communicate between each other. So this could be like processing payments or sending emails. You will build an app that will be your own product, but maybe customers using the app will be able to make a payment inside that app, or they will get email notifications. It is most likely that the app will be connected to an external service like Stripe for payments or SendGrid for emails through their APIs, so the user is able to do the specific tasks they want to get done. It is very important you understand what an API is, basically, because adding integrations to any kind of product will increase development time significantly. And it's a very common idea from a non-tech founder to go, okay, integrating to an API is quite straightforward, quite easy. Let's add this new integration. They have an API, or I just talked to this new partner that we have. They have an open API, let's do it. You just have to understand that that's going to add more complexity to the product and probably more development time and cost. Third, database or database structure. So basically databases are part of the back end of the product, and they organize and store information efficiently, right? So it is very important to have a good structure of the database and all the data sets within a product, because that basically will ensure more smooth operation and scalability within the app. Poor database design will probably create a lot of issues later in the game. Authentication and security is also another term you will listen to a lot. This is basically where your users and your customers will log in and personal and sensitive data will get processed. So this is fundamental for compliance, and it impacts development time all the time, basically. And last but not least, you will listen to deployment and hosting a lot. This is basically where your app lives and how users are able to access it. There are many options in the market to host and deploy your product. They all have different options that affect costs, performance, maintenance, and whatnot. There are 5 common mistakes that most non-technical founders and their teams make that will lead to project failure. So number 1 is starting with the solution instead of the problem. Many founders, they are focusing basically primarily on features before really defining what the problem is that they're trying to solve for a specific customer, for a specific group of people. And this is basically essential for success. You need to understand what is the problem you're solving. And this is not only a problem or a mistake that non-tech founders and their teams make, it's also a mistake that the software teams working with these non-tech founders also make, because basically they're saying, yes, we can do that, let's build it. And instead of asking why, instead of questioning, and instead of going through the right processes to reach the right definitions of what the product should do in the first place. The second mistake is scope creep. It's this idea of adding one more feature. You know, I was mentioning the API thing before, which is maybe as a founder, you're a visionary, looking to grow your business and you're strategizing about how the product could function and what type of features it could have. And then you find out about this new solution, or you find out about this new partner, and you ask them if they have an API, and you're like, let's integrate with them. So that's the scope creep mistake. This just one more feature idea leads to exponential complexity. And even if a developer or a product owner or a product manager from a team tells you, yeah, that's pretty simple to do, or yeah, that could be pretty fast, don't trust that raw, vague answer and go deeper into how long will it actually take to get built and how complex it is. Because if you just go with that idea of just one more feature, you'll start falling into the trap of delays, budget overruns, and just more time. The third common mistake is picking the wrong tech stack. So if you choose trendy tools just because they're hot and they're sexy, maybe the thing works out just fine, but it's very likely that you're buying a lot of technical debt for the future. And that will be a waste of time and money as well. So just try to match the technology with your actual business requirements. Number 4, hiring based on cost instead of fee. Cheap developers or cheap agencies and AI tools, they will often lack understanding of your business vision. And this will cause a lot of really expensive mistakes. It's just as basic as that. So yes, you can go for a cheaper option, or yes, you can go for a more expensive option, but cheaper doesn't necessarily mean faster and easier to get done, and more expensive doesn't necessarily mean more premium. You really need to understand the trade-offs when hiring the right team. And then finally, the final most common mistake is ignoring testing and iteration. Building the first version is just a start, but testing and iterating and going all over the place on continuous improvement will take as much time as the initial V1 development of the product. So you need to consider that in your budget. Now, how much should you spend time and money-wise on an app? Let me clarify first, this is just my own opinion. I'm an agency founder from Argentina. I work with businesses across the world. I have clients in Argentina, in Mexico, in the US, in Spain, and in Sweden. And I'm going to give you my perspective as a person working with teams that build products, especially no-code products based in Bubble. I like to think of 3 types of apps: simple apps, moderate complexity apps, and high complexity apps. Simple apps to me are apps that you can build in anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Moderate apps are apps you build in anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And then high complexity apps will be anywhere from 6 to 12 plus months. Now, if you're building a simple app that will take 6 to 8 weeks to get built, it will be like a V1 MVP of your product. You need to look for a budget that will sit anywhere from 10K to 30K, especially if you're building something in no-code or low-code tools. Again, I don't really care much about the type of tools that will be used because, you can get done really great products in no-code and even low-code solutions, and sometimes they're just better and faster to get built than old school custom code. And you can also get great stuff built in custom code also pretty fast. I wouldn't care much about that, but yeah, 10 to 30K is usually the type of budget you need to spend when you're targeting kind of a simple MVP V1 of your product. If you're going over custom development because you want to trust that old school traditional software team, that's going to be more expensive. You're actually looking at a 30 to 60K range budget, even for a 2-month project. Now, for a moderate complexity app, meaning 3 to 6 months, I would look into 30 to 90K. I know it's a pretty long range, but obviously this will depend a lot on the amount of integrations and features your product will have, because that will rely a lot on how many people will actually be needed in the product team to execute the product itself. And if you're going for a 3 to 6 month range for a moderate complexity app and you want to strictly do it in custom code, then in my opinion, this is going to be at least 50 to 60K. And I would actually even say that 80K is kind of the starting point for that kind of products. Now, if you want to do more like high complexity products for a timeline of 6 to 12 plus months, in the no code, low code context, that's going to be at least 100K, maybe 100 to 200K. And then if you want to do custom development, probably your starting point will be 200K and more. Now, one of the biggest questions that non-technical founders ask me all the time, and not only me as an agency owner, but any kind of agency owners or software developers or software agencies, is why software takes longer than expected. Why is it that I always have in my mind an idea about the timing, and then I talk with different teams and companies and developers and creators, and they tell me one thing, and then the project ends up lasting way more? There are 5 main things that happen here that I want to address. Number 1, it's the complexity iceberg. Simple features often hide complex underlying systems. And that could go not only from a very specific custom feature your product needs, but also like authentication or security. So this happens. Number 2, integration challenges. Connecting APIs in different systems, it just introduces unexpected delays and complications, especially if your team is working with an API or a tool they've never worked with before in the first place. So the fact that you are proposing to integrate with an API, and the fact that a tool has an API just for the sake of having a decent documentation, that's not going to be a warranty that things are actually going to work out just fine and they're going to be seamless and fast. Number 3, the 90-90 rule. The last 10% of developments a lot of times takes as long as the first 90%. I've seen this happen a lot. And that's typically because it reflects the effort to make software production ready. There's a lot of QA, a lot of testing, a lot of stress testing the app in the end of the project, final tweaks, visual tweaks, technical tweaks, security tweaks that sometimes are incredibly important, and sometimes they will take much longer than anticipated. So you need to watch out for those early on in the project. Number 4, user feedback and iterations. The fact that people start using the product, and by people I don't mean necessarily customers, it could also be you, your team, stakeholders, your family, your friends. When people start getting their hands on into the business, feedback comes up, and basically this uncovers a lot of issues and opportunities. And a lot of non-technical founders, what they do is basically say, okay, I actually want to spend more money and more time into this product because I want to really address all of this feedback that we just got. So obviously that's going to be up to you and it's going to be your decision, but you're going to have to make that decision for sure. And number 5, testing reality. Thorough testing across devices and scenarios is essential, but it's really time consuming. So don't skip it because it's going to lead to poor user experience and really bad results and technical debt in the end, but you need to budget for it early on so you make sure there's time and money allocated to that process. Now, if you're a non-technical founder and you have the option to avoid going all in into building a huge product from scratch, you have nothing so far, and you want to go from 0 to a full product, I think you need to take it slower and you need to go through a few steps before. So first, you need to talk to your customers. You need to talk to at least 20, 30 real target users about their problems, not the solution you have in your brain. You need to know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and you need to document patterns really carefully. Once you do that, you will go through the second step, which is building or executing somehow a manual product or a manual MVP. So try to provide whatever it is that you can provide to them as a service or as a solution manually. Try to do that manually first to validate demand without all the heavy technical investment. And sometimes this sounds complex, but it's actually easier than you think. Sometimes it's like deploying a weekly newsletter. Sometimes it's hosting weekly or bi-weekly in-person meetups. Sometimes it means simply delivering a very basic service online, and that's it. Once you're done with that, you can start prototyping using no code and AI, a basic version of your product. And I've talked about this in different videos that you can find on our channel, but right now you can actually take a lot of your customer feedback and go to tools like V0, input all those conversations you had with your customers and all the feedback and results you got on the manual MVP, and start building a V1 of your product. At least start prototyping it. You don't need a team to do this. You don't need a lot of technical expertise. You just need a little bit of time. Even if you don't have the time, you can find time and someone from your team to start vibe coding at least a non-functional prototype that looks like the real thing. And this is going to allow you to go back to those 20, 30 people you talked to, or to the clients you had in your manual MVP. Show it to them, run a few usability tests, and get real feedback live. Then you're going to be ready to pre-sell your product and basically get a lot of validation before even spending actual money on real software. So what's the tech stack in 2025 to build an MVP? Honestly, at this point, pretty much any kind of tool, any kind of language, any kind of no-code, low-code tool or custom development tool works just fine. What you need to find is a team that is able to understand your vision and execute it in a realistic time and budget, and a team that has the experience doing that. Basically, that's pretty much it. So just to go through, some of these different technologies really quickly. Let's say you want to build a marketplace or a content platform. Bubble as a no-code tool is just great for that. If you want to build a complex no-code app, Bubble will do it. WordPress still works great to this day, especially if you want to build a marketplace and e-com. WooCommerce just works just fine, basically. And then you can get into this kind of products with AI, but I would say that if you're doing vibe coding like V0 or Bubble, I would definitely just do that only for either a prototype or a very, very basic content platform. If you're actually building something a little bit larger, I would definitely consider using a custom development team with Cursor. If you're going to do a mobile first app, right now the main framework that works just fine is React Native as a front-end tool, and then some kind of backend that feeds React Native. Probably you'll be able to build a really, really great app. Flutter is also another technology that is being used a lot by different agencies. So those two are pretty much the go-to when it comes to having something built in custom software. If you want to go for the no-code approach, you can do a Bubble app and wrap it in a mobile wrapper. And in the next months, the mobile native feature that they're building, which is currently in private beta, will be out, and maybe that will be good enough as well. The leading tool in the no-code world for mobile is Flutterflow, so you should definitely consider that. And then there's also a possibility of building a web app either in Bubble or actually custom code, and then have a progressive web app or PWA. It's still a web app, but it has a lot of mobile features that will work as a middle ground. If you want to build internal tools or dashboards, again, Bubble is great, WeWeb is great, Retool is pretty cool. You can actually do that yourself if you're tech savvy enough, so that's pretty interesting. Airtable and Notion also work as pretty simple front ends. And then obviously, if you have a large business, a lot of sensitive data, Bubble will probably do just fine, or just custom code. Finally, ecom. People ask me a lot about ecom too. I'm not into the e-commerce business, so I'm not an expert. What I can say is that Shopify is just the best tool ever, I think. Now, if you're about to hire an agency or a developer team or a software business, you have to ask about 8 things. You need to ask 8 specific questions. Number 1, What's their experience and portfolio? They need to be able to demo things they did, and they need to show you examples of past work. That's simple. Number 2, ask them how they address change management. In the middle of the project, if something goes on, if one of their employees leaves the business or whatever, they need to explain you what's their process to address that situation. Number 3, what about testing and QA? So ask them, how is it that they have a systematic quality assurance process and how does it work? Number 4, what's their post-launch support? Just clarify maintenance and ongoing support after launch. Number 6, documentation. Check how they document the project to avoid future lock-in, because you don't want to hire them and then 6 months later realize they haven't documented anything, and if you have any problem and you want to switch providers, that's going to be a huge deal for you in the negative side. 6, developer needs. Good partners will specify what they need from you to succeed right out of the bat in initial conversations. Number 7, risk awareness. Again, honest, reliable partners will talk about potential risks really early on in the game. Number 8, communication. Ask them how they handle all the regular updates on a day-to-day basis and how does the agenda of a project looks like. If they're not able to answer to you straightforward, it means they don't have a standardized process for it. So the conclusion on your path to building apps in 2025, understand the fundamentals, avoid all the common pitfalls, set realistic expectations with your team, validate before building. This is extremely important to save you time and money, and then find the right partners. These are the 5 key elements to help you build great products in 2025, especially if you are a non-technical founder. So I hope all of these ideas and approaches help you bring products to life, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Ciao.